Beautiful Elden Ring, the game that made this channel what it is right now, that and you guys of course, but every time that we get a new content for Elden Ring, we all get excited because this is just a gorgeous and beautiful game. It is obvious that they are going to be preparing the game, balancing a little bit more before the release date or release day for Shadow of the Erdtree, which is the upcoming DLC that is going to be on the game. That being said, today we got the Elden Ring patch 109. And oh boy, I always get excited about patches in Elden Ring because they add so many changes that just make you want to go back for more, and the best part of it all is that it is all free. So, patch notes version 109, there's a whole bunch of bug fixes that we are not going to be focusing on this video, we're going to be focusing on the highlights. And the biggest feature is this one. The ray tracing support has been added to PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and PC versions. Ray tracing can be activated in the settings menu. Do have in mind that it is going to take a hit. And well, basically this footage that you are seeing on screen right now, it's basically recorded footage that I got on my on my PlayStation Series X, yes of course, on my Xbox Series X. And well, to be fairly honest with you, Elden Ring has always been a beautiful game. The first thing that you are going to notice, of course, is going to be the volumetric fog, which is a little bit more dense, I should like to say. Also, I am a little bit disappointed. You know, Elden Ring, it's a game that has always looked beautiful. It's one of the most gorgeous games that I have ever seen in my entire life. But with the ray tracing, is it really worth your while? Yes, of course, if you have a beefy PC that can run the 4K 60 FPS and ray tracing on, then why not? But in consoles, right now, I do not believe it's worth the trade because you are going to get some serious FPS dips here and with the ray tracing on. And again, as you can see on the footage, it is a little bit more clean, beautiful, nice looking. In these types of games, what you always want to have is a steady amount of FPSs that will allow you to brute force your way through the most engaging, violent and brutal fights that you will encounter in this kind of games. So while it is a nice feature, something nice to have, I wouldn't personally use it myself that much because I like to have a little bit more of control over my fights. The next feature that is going to be happening, it's going to be the PvP exclusive balance adjustments. Now, I know a lot of people are not crazy about the PvP and Elden Ring. It is not as good as it was in games like Dark Souls 2 or Dark Souls 3 and whatnot. But nevertheless, let's talk about them. And mainly, as you can see right here, it's mainly nerfs. And very much needed nerfs, to be completely honest with you. At the end of the day, it is very important that they nerf the PvP to bring back the glory days. But the only buffs that we got is the inescapable frenzy, incantation power, and grab angle have been increased. Lifesteal, fist, skill power, range, and grab angle have been increased as well. They were very short. It is something that needed to be done, but also decrease the power of two-handing jumping attacks, and this is something that everybody guilty in here as well. I would be abusing of this bad boy on PvP. Heavy running attacks of fist and claw weapon types, that's nerfed as well. The power of founding ring of star spells, nerfed as well. Enhancement effect of the Terra Magica spell. The damage and poise damage of the wave of gold skill when hitting an opponent over a certain distance. And this is something that most definitely did need a nerf, because if you're fighting Colosseum in team fights, a lot of people can just sit behind that and just spam this thing as much as possible. Also, the effectiveness of Determination Royal Knight's result skills. These were very meta for quite a while. They have been nerfed countless of times, and people still find a way to use them. The Contagious Fury skill of the Jellyfish Shield, the effectiveness of the Claw Talismans, This next bunch that you see right here, it's just From Software trying to fix a little bit more the bleed build issues that we have always had present in Elden Ring. The Claw Talisman, the Lord of Blood's Exaltation, the White Masks, the damage, jumping attack damage granted by the Raptor's Black Feathers armor. It's a combo that is very meta, that everybody was using, because dual wielding bleed effect weapons as well as frostbite weapons with jumping attack damage, it was just beautiful, powerful, gorgeous, and disgusting as well. Decrease the damage buff granted by magic shrouding crack tier and all of the crack tiers that add elemental damage to your build. I am very sorry about this because I always like to use my magic crack tiers on my elemental builds, but do have in mind that this is PvP exclusive balance adjustments. Now, let's go over the general balance that they did. This is still PvP, added of a invincibility window when respawning at the Colosseum, so yeah, that is very much still PvP. But then we got a whole bunch of different things that I just find beautiful, and some of them that I find weird, to say the least. There is a buff on the increased scaling of the following attributes when infusing weapons with certain Ashes of War. This has always, this has been previously buffed as well. They increased the duration of this Ashes of War, although I do think that phrasing needs a little bit of working in here, because it says that they increase the scaling of the following attributes when using magic weapons with certain Ashes of War, but these are really not attributes, these are the elements. And the attributes, it's, for example, for magic you would get an increase in intelligence, for lightning and sacred you would get an increase with fade, and so on and so forth. So that is what it gets me confused a little bit, but it also increased the attribute scaling of the following weapon types. And this is one of the highlights that I do believe it's going to be the highlight. Colossal swords, colossal weapons, because From Software has always from the beginning of the game tried to balance these things to be viable, to be usable, and for people not to dual hand them and abuse them with jumping attacks. And they just want for them to be viable. And the buff for all of these weapon types, and this is for the attribute scaling that they have, it's for colossal swords, great axes, hammers, flails, great hammers, colossal weapons. They also increase the speed, range, and recovery time of some attacks for the following weapon types: great hammer, great axes, great swords, curved great swords. Do have in mind that all of this, as you can see, it's weapon type. It's not entitled to a specific weapon. So for example, all of the colossal swords got an increment in damage, increase in damage. All of the great axes, all of the hammer, provided that you scale them properly. The speed, range, and recovery time of some attacks of the following weapons, and also flails. Not too much people like to use flails in this game, so they did receive a big, huge buff. I am going to have to play a little bit more with builds for flails. With this thing, they increased the speed of some attacks, the recovery time was reduced, they increased the poise when using two-handed attacks, although this needs a little bit of work on phrasing as well, because it doesn't specify if it's either the poise damage that you deal to the enemy or the poison hyper armor that you get while attacking with two-handed attacks. So that needs a little bit more testing. Now, this is a big highlight that I very much love to see, and yeah, this is just beautiful. They increased the running attack speed and reduced attack recovery time for the following weapon types: straight swords, curved swords, katanas, twin blades, axes, hammers, and halberds. Also the attack speed, the first attack speed of the following weapon types: straight swords, curved swords, and whips. Increase the speed of guard counters for the following weapon types: straight swords, great swords, colossal swords, great curved swords, katanas, twin blades, axes, great axes, flails, great hammers, spears, and great spears and halberds. And what it makes me so happy about this is that if you have been following my contents since the very first day that we started to cover Elden Ring, then you know that I made sword and board knights. I am that kind of player. My favorite weapon, even though that I make huge amounts of builds, I always prefer to have a straight sword in my hand and a shield on the other one. And as you can see, all of these buffs, the only weapon that is consistent and that it appears on all of the categories in here is the straight sword. So we have the increase running attack, recovery time, and speed for straight sword. Increase the speed of the first attack for the straight sword. Increase the speed of guard counters for the straight swords. Guard counters, I have to be honest with you, I never really use them that much, because more often than not you would get interrupted, especially when you're fighting against multiple enemies. That is still going to happen, that is still true, but it's not going to be that huge of a deal like it used to be before. Reduce the attack recovery time for whip weapons, very much needed. Whips need more love in this game. Also the damage of claw weapons, which is quite nice. Claws, we would usually use them to inflict status elements, afflictions, so it is very nice that they increase the base damage of it all. This is interesting, weird. It's a very weird weapon. You are seeing on the screen right now, they added fate scaling. This is a base weapon. It is not a special weapon. It is not a legendary armament. It is not a boss weapon. And still, it uses basic improvement for gear, enhancing for gear. This can be at level 25. You cannot infuse this weapon. But it's also the Ash of War of this thing. It seems to be like a Fate kind of weapon, but it's also a B strength scaling weapon, a main strength weapon. So they did add Fate damage, holy damage, and Fate scaling, but the scaling is garbage. So it is still an interesting weapon that I would personally never use. It might be fun, it might be usable. It does reach some crazy amounts of damage, but yeah, not really that much for me. They increase the damage negation when blocking holy damage and decrease damage negation when blocking damage from other affinities, so basically more defense for elements. Increase the effectiveness of the twin blade talisman, and many of the builds that we did use with this bad boy are going to be much more amazing with this thing. Slightly reduced rolling travel distance for like equipment weights. Speedrunners that are running around naked should be very sad about this thing. They decrease the hitbox size for some attacks of the following weapon types: thrusting sword, heavy thrusting sword, spear, great spear, and halberd. These specific ones, I do not know why they decreased the hitbox. They were already somewhat of a tricky to land blows with this thing. But also we have the Ashes of War adjustments. And then again, these are mainly buffs. Remember that in patch 107 we did receive a huge bunch of buffs for Ashes of War. Well, the ones that they didn't touch that much is going to be in here. Lifesteal, damage, target grab range. They did speak about this one on the PvP section. The Search of Fate, increased projectile generation speed, flame speed, increased the guard speed and blocking amount of the skill, adjusted the angle of the firebolt, tongues of fire, increased the guard speed and blocking amount of the skill, Great Oracular Bubble, increased projectile generation speed and reduced recovery time. This is actually a very amazing Ash of War. I do not know why they think that it needed a buff. The Viper Bite, reduce the time before rolling, is possible after using the skill. The Shriek of Milos, this has always been an amazing weapon, although the skill I do not know that much. The Spear called Ritual, increased projectile generation speed, and yes, this is very much needed. More often than not you would get interrupted or the enemy would move from the place where you summon the spear, so very much needed. Curse Blood Slash, increased projectile generation speed and reduce the recovery time. The Gold Breaker, reduce the recovery time as well. And finally, the Command V Kneel, that is a weapon that I always wanted to use, but I never thought that it was going to be that good. The Star Color Cry increased the speed of follow-up attacks, and the Spinning Wheel increased attack generation speed, added a roll a heavy attack cancel, timing while using the skill. And rolling heavy attack cancel, dude, that is huge. And then we have a whole bunch of different bug fixes that we're not going to be focusing that much. It is very nice to have the bug fixes, but they do not interest us that much. That being said, that is a quick rundown of the patch notes highlights for version 109, and as you were able to see, it's a big boy patch. Happy to see that, because thanks to this, I can get back to making more builds, to try some more stuff, to start using the straight swords properly. And there are many straight swords that I did want to use, but I never get the chance because they felt so underpowered compared to different categories for weapons. We are going to be making lots and lots and lots of new builds to prepare ourselves for the upcoming Shadow of the Erdtree. Remember, no one has told you that you're a gorgeous and beautiful person. You are indeed a gorgeous and beautiful person. I'll be seeing you goddamn gorgeous and beautiful people in the next one. Have a beautiful day and goodbye.